जगी सर्व सुखी असा कोण आहे. विचारे मना तूच शोधून पाहे. मना त्वाचिरे पूर्व संचित केले. तया सारखे भोगणे प्राप्त झाले. Who in this wide world is happy in all respects? The answer to this eternal question is to delve within our own minds and selves. Whatever the conscious has accumulated through our past actions and deeds, we are subjected to experiences in proportion to those actions previously performed.
Hi, we're back and we're twinning.
We are twinning, yo yo yo.
Yay! Bella ciao, bella ciao. Okay, bye.
Hmm.
So we are back to discuss the one and only book named Roots in Oblivion, written by one and only Purva Dawal Bhutta. Yeah. So today we are here to discuss the second chapter named Aranya Kand Panchavati. So before we start into discussing the content in that chapter, why don't you give us an overview about what we find in this chapter and what we're going to read about it?
Okay, hello, welcome back. And बहुत दिनों के बाद हम शूट कर रहे हैं, I mean record कर रहे हैं on Zoom. So guys, I hope you are following this series. Please do follow this series, if not anything else. On a very serious note, आपको ये पता चलेगा कि अगर कोई भी राइटर हो, अपकमिंग राइटर हो, ऑथर हो, अमेच्योर राइटर हो, तो एग्जैक्टली लिखने के टाइम उनका माइंडसेट क्या रहता है, वो वैसा क्यों लिखते हैं, एंड उसके पीछे व्हाट ऑल थॉट प्रोसेस दैट ही और शी हैज टू गो थ्रू, एंड इफ एट ऑल ही और शी इज अ सीरियस राइटर, देन उनका कुछ रिसर्च उसके पीछे है, और अगर है तो क्या है. सो यस, वेलकम बैक. एंड ये हमारा चैप्टर 2 के बारे में हम बोलने वाले हैं आज. सो इन केस यू गाइज आर व्यूइंग दिस पॉडकास्ट, रूट्स इन ऑब्लिवियन प्लेलिस्ट का जो पॉडकास्ट है वो पहली बार सुन रहे हो, प्लीज आई रिक्वेस्ट यू कि पहले जाओ, थोड़ा सा पहले वीडियोस का एटलीस्ट थोड़ा क्रक्स ले लो, तो प्रोबेबली और ज्यादा मजा आएगा. एंड यस, कमिंग बैक टू योर क्वेश्चन स्वस्ति, तो आज हम बात करने वाले चैप्टर 2 का नाम एज यूजुअल अरण्यकांड कोलन पंचवटी है. अरण्यकांड इज अगेन द फेज ऑफ द रामायण. जब ये जो कथा है, ये जो आई एम सॉरी, ये जो कथा है, ये जो स्टोरी है, वो हुई थी. एंड पंचवटी इज काइंड ऑफ symbolical of the place around which that story happens, but it is also symbolical of a rather of the bigger concept ऑफ पंचवटी, जहाँ पे पंचवटी को मैंने सिंबलाइज बेसिकली किया है टू अ पर्टिकुलर प्लेस ऑफ ओरिजिन और अ पर्टिकुलर प्लेस, और वो प्लेस के साथ हमारा नाता क्या है, व्हाट रिलेशन डू वी हैव विद अ पर्टिकुलर प्लेस, व्हाई डज इट appear to be that way, and is there a deep psychological or mental connection behind the same, or is it just purely because we have been living or dwelling on the same place, or around the same place for a long time. Yeah, so that's about the name of the place. And if we think about it, or that's about the name Panchavati, वैसा क्यों है? The chapter as usual is divided into three parts, A, B, C. And one part deals with the story of Ramayana, which takes place in that particular area or region called Panchavati, which is near Nasik. The second is about a fictional character, Arvind, who happens to live around the same area near Panchavati. And the C part is obviously the philosophical context as to what Panchavati and the larger context of a place means. So yeah, that's about it. That's how the chapter is structured.
Interesting. So I'll start talking about the second part of this book, which talks about Arvind and his adventures that he has planned for his summer vacation.
Right,
So
right.
while reading this particular piece, the one thing that came into my mind was how we as kids used to be so excited about the summer vacations, or kaise we would be like, wow, finally exam khatam ho gaya hai, summer vacations hai, we are free
Right,
as a bird,
right,
and we start planning out all these things. We go visit our
right,
native place, we go visit our relatives. So it just
right,
took me back to that time when
right,
I was also a kid, and I would be really excited to spend
right.
the 2 months of my life in such an exciting environment. So I would like to ask you, while writing this bit about Arvind and his
हाँ,
adventures,
हाँ,
were you any time thinking or taking instances from your own childhood
हाँ,
or from your own experiences that you've had while spending your summer vacations in Nashik, as you have always told me that you have spent most of your summer vacations in Nashik. So
right,
did you
right.
take any kind of an experience from your own life to make this very beautiful and cute little story about Arvind?
Yes. So I'm always a sucker for the entire concept of uh, we belonging to our childhoods and what all things we happen to have learned from our childhood. I'll take that
Hmm.
statement a further back and I'll rather say that uh, we always learn the most in general about life, about experiences, about anything, about language, about relationships, and our psychology, our behavior, our attitude patterns are molded
Right.
to a large extent from the age group of 3 or 4 until we are about 15 or 16.
Hmm.
For me, I always think, I mean, I've not studied psychology in deep, but whatever I could amass, whatever knowledge I could get from reading different books and just looking back at myself from those times, uh, I am always intrigued by the fact that there are always two aspects to this thing. The first one is that we are the most carefree, innocent, transparent, uh, and just being what we truly are inside out during that age
Right.
group. Especially if till the time you're 13 or 14, maybe after 15 you change a lot after your 10th standard. And without even us knowing, we literally are like a sponge during that time. Whatever things
Right.
we learn, we see, we observe, we just grasp it inside us. And I mean, just look at yourself. Anyone listening or watching this podcast right now, I would just like to tell them to just hit the pause button right now for this podcast and just close your eyes for a bit and imagine. Uh, remember any part from your childhood, from the age of 4 or 5. My memory started from 3.5. किसी और की memory 4, 5, 6 जब भी से start होती है. Try to remember the first instance that you can remember from your life. Go from there. You will be aghast and you will be surprised to the number of memories we can actually recollect during every year, during your first, second, third, fourth standard, right up to your 8th, 9th, or 10th standard. Maybe you also have
Right.
memories from your 10th, 11th, 12th standard, but after your 11th or 12th standard, your memory drastically reduces. Memory in terms of memories of particular experience.
Hmm. Hmm.
The second point is that when you are little, when you are, not little, but when you are in your mid, till the time you are in your mid teens, that is when you are 13 or 14, वहां तक every experience feels like a lot. The time itself seems to expand. So
Hmm.
when you are in your schooling days, you will imagine that the school is going on forever. And when you are in your Diwali vacations, your Christmas or your summer vacations, you will feel like once your summer vacations or Diwali vacations start, you will be like, अब तो मेरी जन्नत है. अब कम से कम मतलब 2 महीना बोलने के लिए है, but what we feel inside is that अब कम से कम एक जीवन तो बस ऐसा ही चलने वाला है, without any tension.
Hmm.
And this ability of the human mind to process information in a very nascent stage, in a very nascent biological stage of human beings, tells us a lot about how the human mind functions. And the functioning of the human mind is such that, in case if you have noticed this about your own self, I noticed this about myself a lot. in this aspect, I'm truly blessed to say that even right now, the flat that I'm recording this podcast, I've been living in the same apartment or flat for the last 30 years of my life. और जब भी मैं बाहर जाता था, yeah, that is my entire life practically.
Yeah.
The only time I wouldn't live in this flat is when I would go for summer vacations to Nasik. And what it does to you over a period of time is it actually helps you in developing a very great and a very profound bond between you and that flat, or you and that particular place that I like to call it. And why this happens is because you start associating every good and bad memory with that particular place. But according to me, if you stay at a particular place, or in general, what I'm trying to say is a person associates a place with the memories that place offers us, or the experiences that we have had. So when I look back at my life, I always know that even inside my head, whenever I'm slightly depressed, or I'm feeling off, or I'm feeling sad or low in my life, I always go back to those memories which made me happy. And for me, the truest and simplest form of happiness is that feeling of not having any responsibility and just being carefree in a positive way, not in a negative way, and just being in that moment. So that for me is true happiness, which as adults we truly miss.
Yeah.
Because even though we have a lockdown, and touchwood by God's grace, we have a roof, we have water to drink, we have ample food, but still we all have that thought at the back of our heads, like back of our minds, like अगर दिवाली तक कोरोना नहीं गया तो क्या? So we always have that looming tension inside us, which we never would have had, which we never had actually when we were little.
Right.
So our childhood memories, unless unfortunately some people do have traumatic childhoods, then that is a completely different and respectable thought. But I'm not going there. I'm talking about generally how childhoods are molded. So even now, as I was saying, when I look back and when I want to be truly happy and I just want to feel warm inside, automatically my mind takes me back to those days. And within a couple of seconds, or maybe within a couple of minutes, my BP comes down. I can feel my heart rate, which had gone up due to the anxiety, it comes down. And this, why I've explained all these things in such detail, is because I'm trying to prove a point, which is simply that if you associate a place with many good memories, then that becomes your comfort zone inside your mind. And that is the kind of importance that a particular place has on a human psyche. Consecutively, to sum up, I would say that why the name Panchavati is given is also because almost 60 to 65% of the people even watching this podcast right now, I'm sure they must be knowing the story of Ramayana, and how after summoning him to exile by Dasharath, the king, Ram, Lakshman, Sita, they ultimately settled down in the Panchavati area of Nasik. And there amidst the forest, they had built, they were wandering for a very long period of time. But as luck would have it, they ultimately arrived at a spot or at a place wherein they felt that the vibe of that place, the word that we guys use every now and then in today's time, they actually felt that the vibe of that place was such that it could suit them in such a way that it would give them peace of mind. Right. There were deers and there were peacocks and there were all the kind of eagles and small birds and other animals, rabbits and whatnot. And Sita was very pleasant because they were pleasant in her mind because there were many fruits and vegetables available. The animals themselves reduced her anxiety. Ram and Lakshman found ample of sadhus because they also had that thing that if we are sent to exile, we should do some good virtue. And then the sadhus would call them saying, just look after our yajna or the holy ritual that we are doing. And in return, we'll give you some dakshina. So, the transactional system of Ram, Lakshman, Sita with the ecosystem of Panchavati was such that they ultimately felt very warm inside. And they truly settled in that place, though it was for a brief period of time, but they were truly happy in that entire journey, right from the point when they were sent to exile till the time they arrived in Panchavati. That was one point where they truly felt at home again. So in that sense, that symbolism holds a lot of virtue, and that's the reason I've explained sufficiently about Panchavati, which is a very typical story that we hear, but obviously I've provided my own taste and take to that concept, and that is how part A was. Part B, as you pointed out, uh, those memories I recollect. And yes, coming back to specifically talking about part B in this chapter and how it relates to my experiences. So, Arvind, a boy, I actually promoted Arvind to one step better because I always had that longing feeling that what if I had such a Vada all to myself. I mean, I was the only child, or like I had a close group of cousins or brothers, sisters, or friends who would be playing in the Vada, and what would I feel? And hence I promoted him one level further, and I actually made him to reside in such a structure, which I didn't. I had the misfortune of not living in such a structure all my life till my adulthood. And yeah, that's about it. So that is how Arvind stays in the Vada. He also has a lot of friends around. And when summer vacations come, when summer vacations arrive, all he and his friends really care about is uh, how they can manage to productively while away their time, just playing around with each other, and additionally exploring the area that is there around them. So there is this, if you, in the essence of the story of Arvind in this chapter doesn't really move forward. But what I've just tried to explain is whatever I've heard from my forefathers and my imagination clubbed together, saying that how would a person in that era, in the 70s era, actually have spent his or her childhood summer vacations, and what all things they would have done. That's really all there is to it. So yeah, that's about it. The part A and part B are shaped in that manner.
That's really nice. So all these things actually took me back to few of my childhood memories that I would,
Yeah,
spend few days with my grandfather. He would take us to
right,
watch the
right.
trains, and then we'd go have a snack for something like a chaat
Yes,
somewhere,
you had
and
told me.
how
Yes,
we'd go to the native place in my summer vacations, and all of us cousins would be like all out playing day and night, whatever we wish to. So yeah, it was a really pleasant time. I wish I could go back in that time.
yes,
Sometimes I wish we wouldn't have grown up at all.
yes. That's so true.
But never mind.
Yeah,
Adulthood is also quite adventurous
yes, in its
in its
own way.
own ways. Yeah. Considering the situations nowadays, it's extremely adventurous.
Yes,
I mean, I'm
definitely.
literally living in the building where there is a corona case just above my floor.
Yes, I'm
Speak about
aware.
adventure. So, okay. So we'll come to a slightly heavier part now,
Yeah,
which is the part C, in which we
yeah,
have discussed multiple things that
uh-huh.
can be linked to each other eventually.
That's
So,
right.
to quote some, there are history about the language, how
Right.
Sanskrit and other languages were derived, and how the
Hmm.
religion came into picture, how everything comes or everything is present because of the geographical significance. We've spoken at length about Vastu Shastra and why Vastu Puja is actually performed when you buy a
Right.
new house or buy a new land. So, a deeper meaning to Vastu Puja, which I did not know until I read it in the book. And I started thinking in a very different direction after reading that. And
Right.
also, there's a lot of Indian philosophy. But there's
Right.
a few things that really stuck with me, and I have successfully noted it down to discuss. So, in this particular paragraph on page 35, you have
Uh-huh.
discussed at length about Hinduism.
Right.
Hinduism being strongly based on certain values, that is, humanity,
Mm.
empathy, brotherhood, patience. And towards the end of the paragraph, you say that consecutively the people decide to worship him instead of God, since he apparently has had the good fortune to interact with God himself. So, since the time that I have known about religion and I have known about gods, whatever stories I've heard from my parents or from my grandparents, I've always thought that the entities that we worship is God. So, what I worship is Lord Krishna, Lord Ganesha. So, in this particular sentence, it really caught me off guard, and I started thinking, ki which is this entity that you are talking about, who is the true messenger of God, or who passes on our who passes on the interaction that we have to the God. So I would like to understand which entity this is that you're talking about. Are they the saints and the sons that we had in the past that we still worship? Few of the people do worship. So if we could have some clarity in that, it would be great, because it's just stuck with me somehow.
Right. So to answer your question, I would give you an introduction of a certain concept, and then I'll come back to the question that you asked. And the introductory part that I'm going to speak, I've spoken about it a little bit in a previous podcast, but it's relevant and it's necessary to speak about it again right now. There were just a couple of civilizations that developed, and see, there were a lot of communities. By communities, I mean there were a lot of clans out there in the world since the evolution of the humankind. The problem is not every community managed to pull off a civilization. To pull off a civilization, you need much more than social intimacy or brotherhood bonding and whatnot. You need basically, what is a civilization? A civilization is a mathematical term. Is basically thousands and thousands of people interacting with each other and accepting a standardized form or a system of living. So they accept a set or one particular ruler, or they accept the existence of one particular government or a system which is given the power to rule people or to care for people on the society's behalf. So that becomes a central system on the top. It could be one person, it could be a group of people. It could be either hierarchically passed, or it could also be that they have been elected by the people, or just, they might have social popularity. We are talking about earlier civilization. This is, this is how the concept evolved. And then in today's times, we either could have dictatorships, or we could have democracy, or we could have something in between. Right. But originally, this concept evolved thousands of years ago. Once people realize the potential of, hey, if we actually manage to reciprocate, interact, and adhere to a set of principles or rules, some of the rules we might adhere to, some of them we might disagree to as well. But in the larger picture, if an individual decided to weigh the pros and cons of living into the system against living individually with just themselves or with their nuclear family, they realized that they would probably have somewhat less freedom when living in a civilization. That was a con, obviously, but the pros were much many and they outweighed the cons. Obviously, the pros were you could have a social structure, you could have hierarchy, you could have money, you could have barter system, you would have security, you would have food, you would have shelter, and you would have that sense of brotherhood, because ultimately man is a social animal. Man was a social animal even in that time. So all your necessities or needs were met, albeit at somewhat cost, but that cost was too small to pay. Okay, this is the fundamental reason for why civilizations started developing. Now, not all the civilizations managed to sustain for a long time. A few examples of them would be the Mayan civilization, which was there in the South American continent, or South American region that we call it. but that eventually collapsed, and then many of them even started migrating through Mexico to North America, and that is how they were all. I mean, that is how we originally have the original red neck Indians or red Indians as they are called. Second was, and this is in no particular order. Like I'm not saying the Mayans were the oldest. There are many debates about it, so let us not go there. The second prominent civilization would have to be the I would say the Arabs. Arabs are one of the oldest civilizations, which also includes the Persian civilization or the Persian community. And this, I mean, the third was obviously it was Harappa and Mohenjo-daro as well. The fourth would have been the Chinese or the Shinzo civilization that is popularly called. Fifth could have been the Japanese, but people are not sure. Many say that the Japanese was the older civilization and then they attacked the Chinese, and that is how the Chinese have a connection to the Japanese. Some say that it's the other way around. It's very debatable actually. But yeah, that entire civilization is also very, probably it is older than the Indian civilization. Now here we come to the Indian civilization. Many people say that Indian civilization is one of the oldest in the world. Probably that's right. But is it the oldest? It's very debatable. And what exactly means by the Indian civilization? That again opens up a lot of can of worms. Not just one can of worms, but a lot of different can of worms. My understanding tells me that there was a point during the early Indian civilization phase when people from the eastern and southeastern and the southern parts of Europe, which were prominently the Arabs, they realized that the European subcontinent, I mean the European continent, was becoming slightly inhabitable during that time. Additionally, because their civilization had started flourishing, obviously the perils was that were that too many of them wanted to capture the throne or the central power system. Now, obviously, everyone couldn't do that. So gradually they realized that, look, there are many unexplored territories that we even don't know of, but we know that they are there somewhere. So why don't we just start going there? So they eventually went on this side of the Kusha mountains and the Himalayas and whatnot. It was very difficult. It was extremely difficult for them to cross the Himalayan mountain range. Some of them perished there, but the people who actually managed to succeed climbing to this side, they realized that there's an entirely different civilization that is already there present, which was on the eastern or southeastern side of the Indus River.
Right.
Now, this civilization was there, so they had their particular set of rules and their system, their barter system, their currency, whatever. But the one problem with this civilization, of course, this civilization had thousands and lakhs of good things, but some, I won't say cons, but some things that were the weak link in the chain that constituted the civilization on southeastern part of the Indus River was that they were not very adventurous when it came to them foraging out of their comfort zone or them foraging out of their perceived territory. So they were very satisfied in their own borders, whatever borders they had formed for themselves. And they were excellent people. They were completely non-violent. They had developed their own barter system. Their currency was developed. Their culture was developed. Probably their religion was also developed. But this was a weak point in their aspect. And this weak link in the chain, the intruder started noticing.
Right.
And yeah, and that is when they started coming in, and they helped this culture a lot, obviously in a good way also. They provided them with a lot of good aspects. For example, they provided them with better and different kind of clothing which was unheard of on this side of the continent. Some beautiful culinary additions were made in this civilization, and many other things. So the civilization over a couple of hundred of years, it started changing, and it changed. So my point is, a civilization changes continuously, and because of this, because of the fact that this civilization was on the southeastern side of the Indus River, this civilization came to be called as the Indus civilization, which in today's times, so basically Indus ऐसा सुनने में आता था लोगों को, Indus civilization. Why? Because it was the Sindhu river. The river Sindhu के साउथ ईस्टर्न साइड का सारा civilization was the Indus Valley civilization. Now, the foreigners or the intruders or the invaders or the guests, as we like to call it, they were not very accustomed to the pronunciation of the Sindhu, and they started mispronouncing that Sindhu, Hindu, and that is how it was formed as the Hindu civilization. And it was a civilization. It was never a religion in entirety. The reason why I say this is because even if you demographically look around India, and I've said this before as well, demographically India is very different in terms of the languages, food, in terms of the attires, in terms of likings, dislikings, in terms of even our physical appearances, in terms of our facial features and our body structures as well, right? So when we talk about, now coming back to your point, when we talk about one particular, any religion for that matter, how a religion is basically based is that there is a central entity, or we call a particular entity as God, and then there are people who tell the common people about the existence of this God. Now the common people, obviously they are clueless. It's not that the middlemen are too great, but they at least claim to have had certain epiphanies, which they say brought them closer to God. This is what they claim to, right? So every religion in this world will have normally one particular set of gods. It will have one particular textbook or one particular religious text, and it will have one particular messenger which will tell other people that look, God has formed this universe for this particular reason. These are the expectations on which God's universe is based, and consecutively, these things should be followed by you, which will give you brownie points or punya that we call it, and these are the things which will drive you towards hell or pap as we call it, right?
Right.
This is almost common in every religion, more or less. Now the beauty of the civilization that was there on the southeastern side of Sindhu river was that everything was a khichdi here, and everything got closer to being a khichdi. The invasion of the foreign intruders in the existing Indian civilization, that even furthered the cause of a complete chaotic but beautiful mess that the Indian civilization was.
Is this okay?
हाँ, okay, okay.
ग्लेयर आ रहा है क्या बहुत?
नहीं
नहीं,
नहीं, ठीक है, अच्छा है. मेरे बाल बढ़ गए, नहीं समझ में आ रहा है ना.
वो तो बड़े ही होंगे ना अभी, उसमें कौन सा नया बात है?
ऐसा लग रहा है मैंने पोनी बांधा है.
नहीं, ऐसा नहीं लग रहा.
थैंक्स. चैप्टर 2, अरण्यकांड, पंचवटी.
सॉरी, रुको रुको. मेरा पेंसिल गिर गया. हाँ, सॉरी. मेरे को थोड़ा सा सेट करना था प्लीज. I wish we had those nights ऐसे वाले.
ठीक है, चलो, इट वाज गुड, नाइस पॉडकास्ट.
Okay, bye. Good night.
बाय.
So how do we start this one?